Okay, part 4. Clinton crime family. So, Bill Clinton was the only one during his time as Attorney General and Governor in Arkansas to be guilty of corruption. As we saw, Hillary was guilty long before he was even Attorney General from the Watergate scandal. But she had her fair share, and one of the things that she was guilty of, at least in terms of accusation, because again, no one ever seems to indict these people, is another of the gates, the second of the gates, which is called, as we now know it, Cattlegate, or the Cattle Futures Scandal. In 1978, Hillary took what little money that she had to spend on such an investment. Remember, the Clintons were not yet rich. And that was $1,000. Somebody she knew, I don't remember the names, it's not important, took her $1,000 and invested it in so many cattle that it normally would have cost the average person $12,000 to make this investment. She got to do it for $1,000. And in 10 months, 9 to 10 months, this investment of $1,000 turned into about $100,000. So not only did she get a a huge discount, it should have been 12 times as much money, she made more money percentage-wise on that $1,000, is that 1,000? Whatever. 100,000, times her investment. Yeah, 100,000 times. 100 times, whatever it is. I can't do math in my head. No one else made that kind of money that quick on a commodity. Somebody short-sailed, somebody knew something, and she was a beneficiary of it. Big payoff for an undersized investment. Because, why? They had to be rich. And they didn't care how they became rich. But now these thousandaires are suddenly 100,000aires on their way to becoming millionaires. 1978, folks. But they weren't done. They did these things individually. Now they're doing something as a couple. See, their corruption is not, I'm going to do something bad and you're going to do something. No, sometimes they did things together. Arkansas, their time in Arkansas, when they had power and influence and then they started to want the money, they started to get more greedy. And they started to do it together. And they started to use each other's gifts and connections. The next scandal that they were involved in, this time together, is called Whitewater, which derives its name from the name of the investment property that the two of them got involved in from 1979 all the way until 1986 in Arkansas. Whitewater Development Corporation, as it was, legally called, was one of those things where they promised a lot and delivered nothing. It was an old age retirement community that had very strict rules, as in these retirement people with their last savings invested into these homes, these old folks, miss one mortgage payment and they're out on the street, which allows them to fill the hole and raise the price and make money off of the turnover. That was one of the scandals with regard to Whitewater. But it had to do with a lot more than just that. Money being moved back and forth, laundered, a bunch of other stuff. In 1996, when the Whitewater scandal came to light, Hillary became the first lady in the history of the United States to be subpoenaed and called before Congress or grand jury. No first lady in history had ever been subpoenaed to come before a grand jury in the history of the United States. Hillary and her corrupt BS made her the first. Now, why that's kind of interesting is because just 2 years before, when the Whitewater scandal broke, Congress asked for the documents, and they went missing. Whitewater is a multiple scandalous kind of or multiple faceted scandal. You had the scandal of Whitewater itself, screwing old people and moving money around and laundering and all this other stuff. You also had the scandal of the missing documents in 1994, which just poof, disappeared. What Whitewater documents? The scandal of the first lady ever to be subpoenaed by a grand jury. All in all, there were 15 convictions as a result of the Whitewater scandal. Bill and Hillary Clinton were as involved or knew every single one of the 15 people. In some cases, they were actually partners with them. And they got off scot-free. Friends of theirs, colleagues of theirs, partners of theirs went to jail, including the governor that came after Bill Clinton. But they got away. They were pardoned. All 4 counts that Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were on the hook for, of the 15 convictions, he was named in 4 of them. Let off the hook. They called Bill Clinton the Teflon president. Ronald Reagan the Teflon president. Oops. They should have waited a couple presidents, because the true Teflon president was Bill Clinton. Okay. So that Whitewater scandal was an Arkansas thing. And that was the last of the major problems in Arkansas. So now we skip forward. Well, I should say it was the second to last problem Bill Clinton had in Arkansas. So now we come to the ultimate one, the last major problem that Bill Clinton had in Arkansas. In 1991, he was at the Capitol building where a certain young woman worked. Young, pretty, innocent, at least what Bill had in mind, who caught the governor's eye and whom he sent a trooper, I assume, down to invite up to his suite. Now, or I believe I think it's a hotel room above in the Capitol. I think it's like a suite or office suite. I'm pretty sure it was at the Capitol. It might have been some other government building. And she went up there. Now, this tells you of the innocence, because a lot of the liberals tried to accuse this young lady of knowing what she was getting into, but it doesn't hold water. It really doesn't. When the governor of the state of Arkansas asks you to come to see him in his office suite, and you happen to be a government employee, what's the question? That young lady's name was Paula Jones, and that famous incident, or infamous incident, occurred when she came into the suite where Bill Clinton was sitting. He dropped his trousers and asked her to suck it. She was absolutely aghast. Now, most people think, and she said, "I'm not that kind of girl," and out the door she went. Now, most people think that was the only incident between the two of them that eventually led to Clinton's downfall. I say that tongue in cheek because he didn't get nearly what he should have. But it isn't. Because she worked in the Capitol building, he came by. She had to go back and forth between the governor's mansion and the Capitol building all the time. It was one of her jobs. Not traveling, but something about her job made her have to do that. They saw each other numerous occasions after that. And every now and then, when they were within any distance, he would come up to her and solicit her. Sometimes he'd just put his arm around her. Unwarranted, unasked for, unsolicited. In 1994, she had had enough of the lying about the incident, and she wanted her time in court. So she sued what was then, by then, the President of the United States. A civil lawsuit. And during that lawsuit, Bill Clinton was deposed. And during that deposition, Bill Clinton told the lawyers at present on an audio tape that he did not have any other affairs behind his wife's back. That he was innocent of any kind of sexual misconduct of any kind. And he said this to prove that he was not the predator that Paula Jones's lawyers apparently were trying to make him out to be. At the time, he might not have had any idea what he had just done, which is basically perjured himself. But it goes beyond perjuring himself. He, at the time, was now the President of the United States. That means that he was the top law enforcement officer in the entire country as the executive branch, head of the executive branch of the United States. Of all people, when a citizen says, "I deserve justice, and I deserve my time in court, and I deserve to have the truth be told in my lawsuit, especially by the President of the United States of all people," that should happen. And it did not happen. He lied. He perjured himself. In case anybody is wondering what that really means, the Constitution, under the laws of impeachment, there's a thing called high crimes and misdemeanors. It doesn't mean a misdemeanor like in our legal system, a misdemeanor versus a felony. It has a different meaning. Perjury, by the way, is listed as, or considered legally, a high crime or misdemeanor that is an impeachable offense. Let's leave it at that. Eventually, he settled $800,000 plus. But she never got the truth told in a court of law. She never got true justice. But she got something. Then we have the time he is president, or about to become president. And now we have this corrupt couple moving to Washington, D.C. Now, Hillary Clinton has a deputy chair of the campaign who was running second fiddle to the chairman of their campaign to become president, and her name was Betsy Wright. Now, Betsy Wright, by all intents and purposes, was uh, a honest person who might have been a liberal, progressive, whatever believed as they did. As otherwise, why would she be the chairman or deputy chairman of a campaign? But she was not a corrupt individual. And Hillary charged her, now that the campaign part was over and they had become President First Lady, Hillary charged Betsy Wright with a new job, keeping her on and her staff. And that job was to do what the Truth Squad did with relative success in Arkansas. Because now we're playing for bigger stakes. Hillary had a name, or maybe Betsy Wright had the name, came up with the name, of what she perceived as her job, which was this new job, part of her new job, which was to control the continuous coming forward of women accusing Bill of having sex with them or relationship with them. The Jennifer Flowers thing almost derailed the campaign. So Hillary wanted to put a cap on it. Betsy Wright called this bimbo eruptions. And Hillary may have come up with the name. I'm not really 100% sure who did. But it tells you the mindset of the two of them anyway, certainly Hillary, of how she thought about these women. Her husband is as equally guilty of perpetrating these relationships as they are, but Bill doesn't get a nickname, only the women. She thinks of them as bimbos. And they erupt every now and then. And so we need to stop the bimbo eruptions, as if you can pick your finger and plug a volcano. The first major scandal while Bill and Hillary occupied the White House came in 1993. And actually 93 was a huge year for their scandals. They had no less than 4 of them. But the one that is the most puzzling, I'd say, maybe not the first, but it was the one that is the most puzzling, even to this day, I think, is the suicide of Vince Foster. Now, who was Vince Foster? Vince Foster was brought into the Clinton family, the Clinton staffing, as deputy White House counsel, because he was one of Hillary's partners at the Rose Law Firm. They go back a long time and were close friends. Some say very close, if you get my meaning. As to say that Bill wasn't the only one who had extra friends. But not long into his time as deputy White House counsel, Vince Foster was found in Fort Marcy Park with a gunshot to his head. Now, some people covering up for this whole incident say that the gunshot was in the back of his head. Suicides never do that. That had to be murder. Or not covering. People trying to say he was assassinated. So those who are saying he's covering up for Hillary and the White House say it was a shot in the mouth. If you go on Google, you'll get all sorts of stories about how he shot himself, or what, or where he shot himself. All I'm going to tell you is this. Following the suicide, and I'm calling it a suicide because that's what it's called today. It's what has been called once it was ruled by multiple agencies a suicide. In the days and weeks that followed, they interviewed people that were on the scene of Vince Foster's death in Fort Marcy Park. in Washington. And I'll never forget this for as long as I live. There were two troopers, or two National Park Rangers, I think maybe they were, interviewed on television. It was a man and a woman, young woman. The woman said that from everything she saw when she discovered the body with her partner, nothing indicated suicide. And in part, whatever we are on next, part 5, we'll talk about that and some other things in more detail. Not to leave you hanging, but that's how this is supposed to work anyway. Make you want more, so you go to the next part. See you on the next part.